the intersection of Tennessee Highway and Cherokee Creek Road. Cars bottom of the tree is all the way across the road. There is a car inside of the tree. The lights is cutting on.
You know, another responder had been injured.
Yeah, we actually lost a team member.
One of our hospitals went digitally dark for 8 hours.
We're going into an old abandoned cabin that we found up here. We're going to have to seek shelter.
I wasn't safe working it, and then when I got home, my safe space also wasn't safe.
Yeah, I know, I meant to say that. I don't think it's post-production. Yes. Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you for taking your time out to come share your Hurricane Helene stories with us. As you know, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary. All of you have some major success stories. You folks did some amazing things. You communities did some amazing things. And so our job today is for you to just have some conversations. So thinking back, almost a year ago, all of our communities were hit with something that I've never dealt with. Talk to me through, when did you start thinking, okay, this is something bad. This is going to be something we can't imagine?
I know for me personally, I went to bed the night before, and before I actually woke up, I was actually getting a phone call from our emergency services director saying, I need you now. And so I was like, okay, well, what's going on? And we had stranded firefighters. There were numerous calls, trees, power lines down. Power was going out at the time. Trees were just falling behind me as I was driving down the road. And when I actually got to the EOC, that's when it really set in and realized this is going to be exponentially bigger than we ever anticipated.
That was kind of our same experience. We have storms come through all the time. We lost power. We started losing power. All of our PSAP started losing power. We started getting calls for trees down. We had called up an upper part of the county, and when they called and said, we're not going to be able to get down, as a matter of fact, we're going to have to seek shelter in an abandoned cabin up there. That's kind of when it hit for us that this is pretty bad.
I was standing in the middle of our backup, the 911 center, and everything went black. Phone system, everything went black. And everything that we were able to communicate almost fleet talk at that time. So
same thing happened to us in Abbeville. We all staffed the EOC that night and just kind of were waiting around to see what was going to happen. We never knew it would be that. I mean, we're in upstate South Carolina. So when it finally hit, we had an ambulance crew stuck around 5 hours with a critical patient in the back. And we had a fireman down who had a head injury.
Abbeville, 14. We got 2 firemen down on Highway 28 South.
That's when it really clicked that this is bad. We lost everything too, cell phones, internet, power, everything. So all we had was Fleet Talk too, and thank God it worked.
We had our first vehicle totaled at 6 in the morning. A tree fell on our QRV in northern Oconee County and crushed it. And we went out there and walked him back and just left the vehicle there. We recovered it the next day.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was how fast it kind of happened, because
it was like a switch.
The storm itself just kind of popped up in the Gulf, and it went from 0 to 110 just that quick. Our crew we thought they could get up there and get back. We were tracking it. There was no reason for them not to be able to get up there, take care of this patient, and get back. And it hit kind of out of nowhere, and it spawned a couple tornadoes, and that's what trapped them. I think we'd all agree it caught us all by surprise how quickly this thing blew up.
When we say we had crews cut off, we had crews trapped. That almost minimizes it, because particularly the one you're talking about, there was miles of road that had to be cleared. So in a lot of those circumstances, it wasn't as simple as, oh, we're gonna cut a few trees down a thunderstorm. No, it was miles.
Also, what became very problematic was that the chainsaws started breaking and you couldn't get parts. You could not get replacement chains. You couldn't get replacement saws. You couldn't get the oil for it. You couldn't get the gas for it.
A big game of pickup sticks. It wasn't just one that fell or two. This one fell, then this one on top of it, and you were having to cut through all that. It wasn't just cutting it and pushing it out.
So a lot of us, I know, David, you and I have deployed together, Aaron and I have deployed together to events before. We're accustomed to going to other places and doing the things that we did during Helene, but we're not accustomed to major disasters on the home field. So talk to me about some of those decisions, some of those things that you experienced as well.
I think for us, the first couple of days, communication to the public was our biggest challenge. One thing that the county does well is we contract with Palladian Group out of Spartanburg. They handle our PR, a lot of our PR stuff and everything. Well, we contacted Palladian Group, and they actually brought in a guy, Jason, and he sat in the EOC the entire time with us. He managed our Facebook, Twitter, everything. We got with the school district, able to get the information out through their messaging systems and everything, but really trying to figure out, okay, nobody has power, cable, anything like that. How are we going to get this message out that, there's food these places, or you can go here to charge a phone or whatever. To see a community like that, really everyone came together.
Yeah, that's a good point that you brought up, taking it back to the personal level. I've got a great support system at home, and that's always been kind of that saving grace, but they've never been impacted by a storm as I was leaving. Yeah. We didn't have cell phone coverage, there was no internet, anything, and so when it impacts your community, I was leaving my home while they were dealing with trees in the yard, no power, no internet. I'm trying to respond and serve the community that I live in, and at the same time, I can't contact my family. I can't contact my neighbors, I can't contact my friends, and that was probably the most unique. Every time I've deployed somewhere, always knew that at home was taken care of, they were safe, and in this situation, that was not the case.
So our house is on a creek, and it's kind of in a flood zone, and my wife ended up calling me, and we have 5 kids, and she goes, we're huddled by the front door, pretty sure the house is going to get hit. We had 7 trees come down. She goes, I'm actually scared. But then I didn't realize the phones had gone down, and I couldn't get a hold of them. But I think that's the biggest thing is, our teams were taxed, but then they didn't have electricity, and it was hot. So, they can't wash their uniforms, they can't sleep, they're worried about their own family, they can't get fuel, they can't get food, right? And it becomes this larger mobilization of how do you open up your stations that have generator power and let them use the washer and dryer and bring in cots and stuff like that.
And I think it's a piece that a lot of people miss. Everybody, when a disaster hits, we're all affected, but when the people you expect to come help you, they need to know that their families are taken care of.
We kind of just had a unspoken agreement that families would periodically come to the EOC, if nothing else, just to sit with you just for a few minutes, just to, confirm everyone's okay, just kind of take your mind off of it for a minute, and that was helpful.
I think that's a good lead into our next question. Dealing with Hurricane Helene, how valuable were the relationships you built, and do you believe it was important that those relationships were established before the event?
In Gaffney, the Boulevard, Circle K is right there by 85. Stop in there just about every morning, get a cup of coffee and everything. First day that evening, our sheriff's office started coming over the radio, we're low on fuel, where we get gas. That Circle K was working. I rode over there, I talked to the girl behind the counter, I said, listen, we got police cars, fire trucks, everything without gas and fuel. What can you do to help? We closed 2 pumps between 7 and 8 every day. They can come fill up. From dispatchers to fire trucks, law enforcement, everybody went to the Circle K and filled up. And just so happens to going in and getting a cup of coffee and talking to the people behind the counter, we were able to make that happen.
I used to say interoperability starts at the dinner table, because if you won't eat a meal with somebody, no amount of money is going to fix that.
I think that's, to use our relationship as an example, I just text him, and same thing with the fire. It's just like, we're here if you need it. Just ask, and we'll try to provide whatever you need.
We have a great working relationship internally with Public Works and building maintenance and vehicle maintenance. Vehicle maintenance, we had some damage that they were able to patch some stuff together and keep us running. A lot of times we didn't have to really ask. They were calling us, like you said, ahead of time.
Charleston County EMS was up here and lost a tire at St. Francis. They called me. I sent my mechanic out there and replaced the tire. The EOC here called me multiple times. One time they called me, they're like, we need EpiPens. It's like, what do you need EpiPens for? I said, Duke has already used them and won't go back out without EpiPens. Drove down to the outpatient pharmacy, give me every EpiPen you had, came back here with 13, dropped them on the table, walked away.
It's the relationships.
York called us a couple hours in and was like, hey, we didn't get hit that hard. Do y'all need anything? And at that time we had a generator, but no data connectivity or anything. And they actually sent us a Starlink. First time that any of us had seen Starlink.
The one that was kind of unusual for us was providing water and drinks for the EOC staff and the folks that were out in the field. The fire chief at Easley, his brother is like a VP at Pepsi. And I said, call Brad and get in touch with Denny and tell him what we need. Tell him we'll pay for it. We're not asking him to give it to us, but if he can pallet it up and bring it to admin, we'll get it out. And so, you know, within a couple hours, we had pallets of water and soft drinks and everything else coming in.
Through a relationship.
Through that relationship, because all I had to do was make one phone call and tell them what we needed.
I hadn't been on an ambulance in over 10 years. And been, you know, moving into county administration. But the really cool thing is that all the relationships that I built over my career in emergency services and in working for the state and emergency management division are still just as strong today as they were 10 years ago when I was in the field. It's just interesting that those relationships, you know, while they may go quiet for a minute, they're always still there. They're still there, and they're just as strong as they ever were with just one phone call.
I was really surprised at how quick we lost traditional communications in this event. That really surprised me, as painful as it is to admit that.
One of our hospitals went digitally dark for 8 hours. Cell phones didn't work, internet didn't work, lights didn't work, nothing worked. So we brought down radios.
When we were discussing systems and considering fleet talk, one of the things that was kind of important to us were the redundancy of the system that was being built and how it worked together. And one of the things that was said, I can't quote exactly what he said, but he was like, there's going to be problems with your system. We're going to have network is going to go down, generators fail or something like that. Even an entire site may go down. But the one thing that he said that always stuck with me, he says, but I can guarantee we'll never know it. And I was like, that's a pretty bold statement to make, but he was 100% true. I know that there's been problems, you know, not just in Abbeville, but all throughout, like you said, you know, generators going out. But the actual functionality of the communication system, we never knew it.
Definitely hit on that. About 2 weeks before Helene hit, we were moving into our backup center for a remodel of our main, and I'm real big on redundancies. And I got with John, said, hey, our internet sucks at our backup. What can we do to fortify this? And he's like, hey, we can throw up some of these microwave dishes and point them at different tower sites, and even if the internet goes down, you'll still have connectivity. Well, they did that, and then Helene hit, and he never lost radios. So I was very thoroughly impressed with the Fleet Talk system.
Yeah.
Helene was the first time that we actually utilized our ops channels majorly. So we were able to have at least 12 channels talking at one time, and not one busy signal, not one problem.
The high wind's knocked one of our receivers out of line, but we didn't know it. And Matthew said, you got a connectivity problem. I said, well, we didn't see it. And they said, yeah, but we can see it on the system. And as soon as the rain was gone and the skies were blue, they had a guy up on the tower fixing it.
But let's talk about recovery. What challenges did you face? You know, hurricane moves through, tropical storm, whatever you want to call it. It was a bad storm for us, either way you look at it. It moves through, now it's time to start recovering. I mean, we're still somewhat responding, but what are some of the challenges you faced?
Where to start? Where did we start? Nobody really had a clear understanding of, do we start damage assessments now? Are we still, do we have people still trapped? Where do we start? We got the National Guard in there. I can't say enough about them and those guys and their work ethic. National Guard actually we printed out grid maps, and they took grid maps and Fleet Talk radios, and we gave them some Poole County cars, and they drove every single road in the entire county for us. And I had probably 200 pages full of just tree on this house, tree on a fence, very detailed. But having those people that actually had experienced it down on the coast, something that we had never experienced, really helped us, but we didn't know where to start.
Yeah. That was kind of us. When the calls stopped coming in, I started getting concerned because we didn't have no major injuries. We had several homes that were damaged and destroyed. When the calls started coming in, I got thinking, there's got to be more to this. Then it became, we need to start going and riding and looking at these places that have trees down that we haven't received a call from yet, and actually doing some search and rescue, some search and recovery with regard to that, because when we actually found a few folks, they didn't have cell service because they couldn't call 911. Some of them couldn't get out of their driveway, and fortunately we didn't have any injuries found that way, but we located some folks that we needed to get them to the shelter and get them somewhere somewhere to stay until we could do better.
Seeing the statewide meetings in the morning, they do the statewide meetings, and just to hear all the counties that were affected, you're like, wow, it's not just Cherokee, it's not just Spartanburg, it's everybody.
You see that county status board, and over half the counties are red.
And to circle back, one thing during all that and went over in recovery is we had a lot of folks we pressed into service outside of their normal realm. Bringing those folks in, that from us, from an emergency standpoint, we don't think about that. We're used to dealing with people we know and people we work with on a daily basis. To bring those folks in that don't usually handle emergencies was good for all of us.
We needed cash, so nobody, card readers weren't working, internet wasn't working, so we needed cash. So one of the things, our finance director showed up at the EOC, and they actually made contact with one of the local banks and got somebody to scoop up there, and they pulled out a whole bunch of cash for us and just said, here, use this until we figure out, keep track of it. But that's what we had to do.
I need to go to Cherokee.
I'm about to say.
They're normally not like this.
Somebody handing out cash. Waffle House.
John can attest, our finance department is, every penny is accounted for.
That's right.
At the time they said, here, you need this, and here you go.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the number of IOUs that I wrote for Abbeville at the time, we just kind of had a clipboard of, you just add it to the stack. But we had a lot of, Ingalls was one, Dented Deals, I believe. When their freezers went out, they were just giving their food away, literally giving their food away, and they were just going to write it off or claim it as a disaster loss. But the benefit of that was we were one of the first phone calls that they made, and because we had power, we actually went and kind of got first stab at them getting rid of their inventory. So we brought a lot of food back that was going to spoil and brought it back to the county complex, and that's how we ended up feeding a lot of the crews, was off of the food that was going to spoil anyway. I think I actually brought my freezer from home up there at one point to store some of it in.
One of the things that struck me, and again I go back to years and years of deployments, and I've seen it, but this is the first time I've really experienced it. I think mental health was a huge issue in this event, not just for our communities, but for our responders, our team members, as Aaron put it.
Something I'm working with county administration now is 911 needs more vehicles. We need, something to be able to go get our people. We can't rely on law enforcement. They're busy. We can't rely on fire departments or EMS to go get our people. And it really did take a psychological toll on some of my dispatchers, because they didn't have power. They didn't want to go home. So they're staying, 24/7 at the backup center, trying to sleep in the training room when they can. And 3 or 4 days into it, they really see, hey, I haven't seen my family, I haven't seen anything.
Daily fire and EMS, we don't fear for our lives. We're not in positions like that. But in this situation, for Helene, they did find themselves at times in a very dangerous and precarious situation. And I know of at least a couple after some calls that they came back where, another responder had been injured, or perhaps their truck had been damaged. I believe one was totaled. Came back, and you could tell,
you could see it.
There was a mental toll there, even to the tune of maybe some reluctance to even go back out into the field afterwards. I've never anticipated that, but we did, have several that kind of opened up and said, yeah, I've never been in that type of situation, and I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, we actually lost a team member. There were some other underlying things too, but it was kind of the final thing with him. But I think that's huge, because we did have that crew that was stranded up on the mountain, and they're calling on the radio. We're going into an old abandoned cabin that we found up here. We're going to have to seek shelter.
Guys, us and fire have abandoned our vehicles shelter at 205 Rocky Bottom Way.
And even it had trees coming down on top of it.
One of the things that kind of stuck with me through it is talking to one of the responders, and like we say, they're used to going out working thunderstorms and tropical storms, but nothing to this magnitude. And one of our responders told me, he said, I think this really affected me because I wasn't safe working it, and then when I got home, my safe space also wasn't safe. I think that really took a toll on a lot of them that were out there.
When you look back on Helene, what are you most proudest of? What are you the proudest of when you look back on your team, your response, your recovery, your respective agencies? What are you most proud of?
That's just the magnitude of what we did. So in a 2.5-day period, we responded to over 850 incidents. We evacuated critical patients out of North Carolina. We had to send 5 trucks to the Clemson game the day after Helene. We provided...
That didn't get canceled.
Yep, that didn't get canceled. We opened up special needs shelters, staffed them with community paramedics. I don't even know how many hundreds of rides we gave to vulnerable people. We supported everybody that we could around us and maintained our normal operations. So, and then we went to Milton.
Yep.
2 weeks after that, we sent 4 critical care trucks to Milton in Florida. Yeah.
I could name names, and I'm sure I speak for probably most people here, but it's the willingness, the resilience, and the attitude of the people that work with us every day. You know, Ashley and Luke are here, but so many people literally uprooted their entire lives and dedicated it to that response. I just can't say enough about what kind of a special person it takes to be able to actually do that and put their job, their community over themselves. No stone was left unturned, and there was no one that ever said, "Nah, I can't help you." It was always, "What do you need? I'm here."
To kind of add to what David said, my biggest thing during the whole thing was our teamwork is what I'm most proud of. It's none of us did our actual job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it didn't matter who we were, what our titles were, we were willing to do whatever we had to do. It was just really good to see everybody come together and just do whatever they had to, no matter what kind of job it was.
Some folks, it was a new experience for them. You could tell they were apprehensive and tell they were scared, but they pushed through it anyway. And I think that that's going to pay dividends down the road, because now we're more ready, we're much more prepared for when it happens, because it will.
To see from the top level, our county administrator, to take a step back and say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Y'all are the experts here. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here in case you need something." And he really allowed those of us, emergency manager, myself, to take the lead. I've only known the man for 3 months, but to put that trust in you, it says a lot. And the entire county as a whole, it did that time and time again.
Bringing in those people who had never held a handheld radio in their life, who, you know, they have a phone in their hand, they're like, "This thing's a brick, I can't do anything with it." And we brought in our cache of radios, and every person we handed them a radio. 30 seconds, show them how to use it, and then they go, and now we have established contact with them again. That was probably the most invaluable resource of all. So just taking a radio that's simple, it's easy to use, it's already mapped. As long as you can use a finger to push a button, it'll work. And that's what really, really helped us for days after the event, because cell phones continued not to work. It's not like they were down for 48 hours and then they came back up. It was the entire week. So that cache of radios became invaluable.
I got good people that just never said no. You know, I didn't have anybody that was laying in bed by 5 o'clock that morning. Everybody was out, everybody was doing something to push to make sure communication stayed up.
Blue skies, yeah, it worked great. We were happy with everything, but there was always probably that little sense of uneasiness of, we haven't really pushed this as far as we could potentially. Well, Helene was that time. It did it. And so that was that peace of mind afterwards that you kind of back away from it and go, yeah, okay, that was a good decision. I never second guessed it, but at the same time, to see it tested and fully function and work the way that it was advertised, the way that it was discussed, it was just that satisfaction of walking away going, okay, great, good decision.
I want to thank you, each of you, for being such amazing people that you are. And so many of you over the years have been an influence in my life, you know, my professional career. And then, you know, having times being able to go back, you know, I love working. I love supporting you guys, and for being patient and for growing with us. I really, really, really appreciate that. And I want to say thank you for taking your time out to come talk with us today.
A tree came in on her. She was asleep and hit her in the head. Multiple houses surrounded with
method of treatment. The bottom of the tree is all the way across the road. There is a car inside of the tree. The lights is cutting on and off.
That tree down on the power line. Tree is currently on fire at this time.